Simulcast, the Neil Haley Show, and the Love Is Podcast. I'm excited to welcome the host of the Love Is Podcast, Kim Sorrelle. Kim, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest today.
I am excited about our guest, Ken Hanscom. You are the expert of all things Olympics. I've been seeing other videos of you, and every question you get asked, you know the answer to. So I am excited to talk to you, the COO of TicketManager,
Yeah.
and who's off to the Olympics in an hour from now as we record. So Ken, thank you for coming. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I would love to go to Paris and love to go to the Olympics, but I'm a little intimidated by the whole thing. Is there a way to get over that intimidation?
Yeah, I think so. I think, one of the ways that why I help with people is that we actually have a Facebook group called, for each Olympics we do it. It's basically called Planning and Preparation. And what we do is we basically coach people in terms of the process of going through Olympics, because it can be intimidating. Which events do you do? How do you figure out hotels and flights and all of that sort of thing? And we have about 50,000 people in that group that are planning to go to Paris. So it's super exciting.
Wow. And so basically, have you done this before for other Olympics to prepare people?
Yeah. So we started doing this back in Rio. It was the first time we did that because that one was pretty complicated because of how Rio was. And there's a lot of fears with, Zika at the time. We did it for Pyeongchang. We started it for Tokyo when we were about ready to go 2 to 3 months before the Olympics. And we know what happened with the pandemic, and, not a lot of fans were able to go.
Yeah, that was a tough blow for sure. Anytime the Olympics gets interrupted, it is no fun because it's something that people look forward to. I know I do. I love to watch. What are some of the events this year that are just the hot tickets? I know gymnastics is always,
Yes.
a big one, but what athletes or what else is going on this year people should know about?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. First, the opening ceremony is going to be unique, a time thing that we've never seen, which is it's not going to be in a stadium. It's going to be out along the River Seine. So we're going to have 250,000 people lining the river. All the athletes are going to come floating across on boats. There's going to be over 100 of them. And I think, one of the things I'm really looking forward to as part of that is usually when you're in the stadium, you get some of the fireworks, but you don't get all of them, right? Like you see these videos on like NBC and you see the fireworks off the top of the stadium. We're all going to be outside watching, and we'll be able to see those fireworks at the same time with the celebration. So I think that's one of them. Swimming is always a hot ticket, especially with Caleb Dressel and Katie Ledecky. Katie Ledecky could end up being one of our top female decorated athletes in swimming and ever after this Olympics. So that's pretty exciting. Of course, gymnastics, Simone Biles and that entire team. And then Team USA basketball. There's a lot of hype and a lot of excitement about the Team USA basketball team. And that's been a very popular and hard to get ticket.
Now, so when we talk about Team USA basketball, so are these like exhibitions that have been happening so far where they play Canada and all that? We not started any games yet, right?
That's right. The games won't start until, after the 26th of July, but these have been tune-ups. I think probably the biggest tune-up they had was against Serbia, which was a couple of days ago or yesterday, and we did pretty darn well. I think Serbia is probably picked to be second or potentially a contender with us for the gold medal.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. And they're so fun to watch. The basketball games are so fun to watch. See the guys out on there and the women. It's just everything about the Olympics. There's something special about it, right? Like there's March Madness and there's the Super Bowl and there's the World Series, but the Olympics kind of tops it all. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a few reasons. I think the first is we're cheering together as one country for all of our athletes, and it doesn't matter what their background is or where they're from, but they've earned a place through hard work to get there and compete on behalf of the United States, right? That's amazing. That's something for all of us to cheer for. I think it's also a little bit chaotic. There's over 500 events that happen over 2.5 weeks. There is no other complex event like this in the world. I mean, there's going to be 20, 30 events happening at the same time that first of a week of the Olympics. And, whether or not we're trying to watch on TV and keep up with it, I can tell you it's almost impossible to keep up with it when you're on the ground in Paris.
So tell us what you're going to be doing on the ground in Paris yourself.
I'm going to be going to about 30 events. And so many of the events that we've talked about, I'll be going to the gymnastics women's finals, both all around and the team, gold medal basketball game for the men, hopefully a couple others, swimming finals. But there's a couple of things I like to do that I think I think look at as being unique for each Olympics. So for example, they're doing fencing in the Grand Palace, right? So, you think about that, that's kind of an experience you want to have with this big glass overhang, and it's happening in France. So that's interesting. They're doing equestrian out at Versailles, which I mean, again, another just beautiful kind of iconic sort of venue, and beach volleyball in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower. And then there's a lot of other things you can do outside of this. One of the things that is really, I think, unique about the Olympic experience is that there's 40 what we call hospitality houses. You can call them party houses. And what those are is, a bunch of different countries set up these houses where they invite fans to come in. It can be fans from their country or other countries, and they serve, their own food. There's local. They have art and music and those sorts of expositions, to basically orient you with culture. But then you get to cheer with fans from other countries for their athletes, and that's an experience that I really enjoy. Some of the houses, like the Team NL house, which is for the Netherlands, if their athletes win that day, those athletes are contracted to come that night. And they all appear, and you'll get to celebrate and meet those athletes in person, which you can't necessarily do every day. So, I mean, those are some of the things that I'll be doing outside of, all the great things that Paris already has to offer.
Wow, which is a good reason to go in person to really experience it all. It must be such a different experience in person than it is watching from home. It's nice to get the replays, it's nice to get that kind of thing and have great seats. You're not going to miss anything. But the experience of being in person has got to be a little magical.
It is. And I still think about the first event that I went to back in London is still my favorite event. At that moment when, Michael Phelps, won that gold medal, you see the American flag drop and you hear the Star Spangled Banner. There is nothing that replicates that on TV. You have to be in person to see those. And every time, we have those experiences at the games, and, if we're fortunate enough, we'll get to do that hopefully 10 or 15 times between the events that we have, with the amount of medals that Team USA is expected to win. Those sorts of moments are magical. I think another thing is I've met some of my best friends at the Olympics. When my wife and I started going in London and Pyeongchang and Rio, you meet people that from different or similar walks of life, and you just end up creating this bond over these sports, which is just fascinating.
We've been talking about the sports, but what is your role with the company going there?
Yeah, with my company TicketManager, what we do is we help most of the large brands execute their hospitality programs. And so, you think about these, big brands, Coca-Cola, Allianz, and you can name probably 20, 30 of them that you see commercials around the Olympics for. What we do is we help them. We have software that basically helps them organize and execute those programs, because it's pretty complicated. In a lot of these programs, what you'll see is if maybe Team USA in a certain sport loses in a quarterfinal, most of your guests that you've brought, and these are probably CEOs of other companies and things like that you've brought to entertain, they don't want to go to that event that doesn't have Team USA in it. So on the ground, they're like flipping tickets and switching who goes to what event, and make sure they're creating that awesome experience that builds relationships that helps drive their businesses.
Wow. That's quite a task, I would imagine. And a lot of juggling. Have you always been a good juggler like that? Is that one of your superpowers?
Well, I think operating chaos is kind of one of my superpowers, and kind of creating calm within that chaos. And, we're going to see a lot of it on the ground there, just in terms of the events themselves. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of changes in some of the programs that we're helping to run, where we'll need to, think fast on our feet and make changes quickly so that the guests have a fantastic experience.
So a lot of sponsors have a certain number of guests that they have for tickets when they become a sponsor of the Olympics. How does that work?
Usually how it works is there's a couple of different ways you can do it. If you become a sponsor, you generally get access to what you want, and then they'll create different programs. And I think in Olympic speak that we call it waves. And usually what happens is you bring in a group of people for 5 to 6 days, and you kind of stagger them over the period. Maybe you have some people that really want to focus on swimming, which tends to be at the beginning, or people that like track and field, and so they come towards the end. And then they put together programs within that. And then through the official provider of hospitality on location, even if you're not a sponsor, as a business, you can create these programs. Even if you want to take 5 or 6 guests, maybe you're not taking 200 or 300 like some of these large companies do. Maybe you only want to take 5 or 10. You can still create these sort of curated wave sort of experiences through the hospitality partner, which is on location.
Wow. Yeah. What an experience for everybody who goes. It's just got to be crazy. What about the camaraderie between teams? Like, what do you see there?
Yeah, I think there's this Olympics are unique in that I think at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter who you're cheering for or against. There are these moments where athletes have these very special that we don't expect to perform, right? We don't know about them. We don't know their names for the Olympics. Sometimes they're from the USA and sometimes they're from different countries. And I think that is also a bonding experience when you are sitting with other people that have the same love for sport. Maybe you don't all speak the same language, but you're there cheering together. That is another one of those magical experiences that you talked about in terms of making those connections beyond borders, beyond countries, beyond what may support on a day-to-day basis.
As part of being hospitality, are you involved in specific things with any of the coordinations with athletes getting to meet some of these companies and stuff like that and things like that? When
Yeah, athletes are often parts of these programs. So we, in times we will help coordinate those or put those together. I know one of the ones I'm going to be fortunate to attend this time is going to be one with Michael Phelps, which is still
Oh,
I think my Olympic hero. When I look at, so that's something I'm very much looking to. But yeah, that is generally part of these programs. Is maybe they'll take their group to the Team USA for a house for a day, and as part of that, they'll have some engaging experiences, both with maybe athletes that won a medal last night, but also some of the Olympic and historic greats, everyone from Carl Lewis to Michael Phelps to others that are out there will all be around the Olympic Games. You even bump into Olympic athletes simply on corners in the middle of the street because it's just kind of the Olympics are everywhere across Paris, and you're not surprised by anyone that you see.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so cool. Are there any sports? I've always been curious because there's so many sports, right? And some of them are so watched and tons of fans, and some are a little more unknown. Like you mentioned the fencing, that's so cool. But are there any things that you've seen that you're like, why don't more people go to this? Or this, it's like a hidden gem.
Yeah, I think fencing is going to be one of those. Another hidden gem tends to be archery and shooting. In some countries, these sports are incredibly popular. But what ends up happening is that they are smaller venues, so there's less tickets. I think handball is another one that's kind of if you like a high paced action sport, handball is kind of I don't know, maybe a cross between hockey and soccer in a way, because of the size of the goals and the nets. But that is a pretty high octane sort of sport that if you haven't experienced it, it's definitely worth going to an event for.
is it true breakdancing is a sport this year in the Olympics, or is
It
it?
is for the first and potentially the only time breaking is a sport. And I will tell you that those tickets sold out faster than any other event. The interest for it as potentially both the first and the only time it may be in the Olympics was off the charts.
Why
Wow.
only time?
Well, so thus far, LA has not included it as part of the LA 2020. So the way it works is that there's a core set of programs that each country or each Olympics gets, and then whatever country or whatever city is located, and then they have a choice that they work with the International Olympic Committee to basically figure out what other sports will come in, and so whether or not LA chooses those sports will end up determine whether or not breaking continues or not.
So I'm wow. What a sport that is, right? Like that would be fun to watch. I understand why the tickets would go, and it's probably not at the most giant venue because it's brand new, but it'll be interesting to see if LA takes it on. So it's what it has been like a real unique experience for you, something unexpected or something funny or something that happened that you'll just never forget.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting things is, sometimes when you get your tickets, you don't know what row and seat you're going to be in. And you show up and, you sit there. What happened with us in Rio is that we sat down for the women's gymnastics finals and for the team finals. And sitting next to us were Simone Biles' family. And so that was an incredible experience to sit next to them, us have the reactions to the performances that were happening, but also see them. And then after the team won, to see the media just come down on top of them and we're like, we got to get out of the way or we're going to get crushed by this. That was probably one of the more unique experiences in terms of both uniqueness, but also a great performance by Team USA.
Wow. I just think that it's got to be a great experience. Do you work with other like events, not just the Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, our organization, we work with every single sport that's out there because we work with large brands, everyone from Wells Fargo to Anheuser-Busch. As you can imagine, they have tickets for everything from baseball to soccer to World Cup to Rugby World Cup. So at any given point in time, I have multiple events happening in the world that I have customers with tickets to. And it's pretty exciting. It's kind of a 24 by 7 by 365 type job. But it's, it's always high energy, and there's always something going on somewhere within the world that one of our customers has tickets to.
Wow, that's so cool. So that goes back to your juggling superpower.
Exactly.
that you
Exactly.
get
And
to
keeping
do it.
track of all of them, right? When you have conversations with your customers, it's the funny thing. It's my job to know what's going on in every single sport, because I walk to one customer and they've chosen a certain portfolio of sponsors that they work with, or, teams and events, and someone chooses something else. So some people like Formula One, some people like tennis, some people like Olympics. And, the great part about my job and juggling all of that is it's my job to know about what's going on in most sports.
Are you thinking about LA already because it's so close to you?
Yeah, I'm excited about Los Angeles. We know a lot of the team that's there and currently working on. I know they have some really big, exciting plans. I think it's going to continue to. We've had 3 Olympics that were in Asia and tough time zones for people to watch, and so now to get back on track in terms of the U.S. experience with Paris, and then it'll be in Milan Cortina for winter, and I think it'll hit a big crescendo when we see LA in 2028, and they're already hard at work and making most of the preparations for that.
Yeah, it's such a big deal for a city to take on the Olympics. I mean, there's construction that happens and the timing that has to happen, and the hotels and the other vendors and restaurants and whatever, and the influx of money. I would think it's got to be not an easy thing for a city to prepare for. Are cities grateful after they've done it? Does anybody regretted taking it on?
I think there's been, various success and not as successful stories, in the past. Obviously, 1984 Olympics was considered one of the most successful Olympics in Olympic history, while some previously maybe spent more than they should have in those. And I think that's what's pretty unique about the LA plan. There is no new construction of any single venue that is required for that. They're reusing, and LA already has, right, tons of venues, but there's no new construction really happening for that. I mean, heck, they're even going to put the pool inside SoFi, right? So for the first time, we're going to have a swimming competition at the Olympics. We just had the trials at Lucas Oil that was inside a football stadium, but we're going to have a swim meet that's happening inside SoFi for LA 2028.
Was really New York that close? Because I only watched Billions because I'm a huge fan of Billions. Too bad that show's gone. That was so much fun watching. But was New York one of the choices closest to LA in the finals?
Yeah, I think New York was more involved back, I think around 2016 when we had Chicago and some of the others. And then I think the initial bid was Boston that was going to be high on the bid list before they pulled back, and LA gladly stepped in. At first it was going to be LA 2024, but then there was a negotiation with the IOC because they wanted to give it to Paris, which makes sense for the 100th anniversary of the last time it was in Paris. And then there was a negotiation where they agreed upon that, hey, Paris would get 2024, LA would get 2028. And we have a great, stable of events coming up, right? We got the World Cup just coming up in 2 summers from now in 2026. And then we have, 2028, the Olympics coming.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead,
no,
Neil.
you go, Ken.
Yeah. So there is a question that I always like to ask, Ken, that is maybe something you haven't been asked before, but I spent a year diving deep, doing a deep dive, figuring out the true meaning of love, and love is everything, right? And so I'm just curious where you see love, or where love plays a part, and where it plays a part for you in all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it in everything I do. I spent a number of years working in businesses that I didn't love. They were very good businesses, strong businesses, but being with people, having special experiences and helping make that happen, that's something that I love to do. The Facebook group, as part of it, just something I do on the side for fun, right? I'm helping people have this magical experience that I love, that I love to have part of. My wife and I actually enjoy doing it together, right? It's one of the things that we do together. And I would say, well, how it comes in as I think about the Paralympian athletes too, right? We have so many great Paralympians, many who were veterans of wars who put their lives on the line for Team USA in wars, right? And now are coming back to compete. So I have a very deep love and passion for everything that's connected with what our U.S. Olympic team does, and also the spirit of the Olympics themselves.
All right, Ken, best place we can find info on you. Where can we go?
Yeah, you can find me on X at Ken Hanscom. KenHanscom is the easiest way to find me.
All right. Thanks again, Ken. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
That's a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Love Is podcast, guys. Take care.